All right, we are live. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for stopping by the Martini Shot Hangout. We got a few things to talk about today. There was a couple movies that came out this weekend, so my guest and I are going to speak on that. Kind of give our thoughts about where we think the movie industry is heading. Uh, ooh, and feedback. All right. All right. Let's continue. I'm going to cut that part out. All right, so then yeah, we got a little bit of news that we're going to look into. Scream 7 has had a pretty interesting week, really
Hmm.
aiming to put some butts in the chairs there. And then it's another day ending in Y, and so there's another Emilia Perez controversy that's been rearing its head. And then lastly, we got the Sundance Film Festivals considering a move that everybody seems to kind of be on board positively. And then, so anyway, let's welcome today's very special guest. I've got the one and only Sean Chandler. So, Sean, how are you today, man?
I am doing good. I've got a busy week ahead of me. I'm heading out to LA for the Critics' Choice Awards.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's today, tomorrow, desperately trying to get as much work done and stuff set up. And the idea of getting to just sit down and talk movies felt relaxing. So here we are, getting ready
Yeah,
to
here
talk
we are.
movies
Well,
way
I,
too
you know,
much.
I really do appreciate you making some time. Like you said, you're a busy guy. I've got a lot on the docket myself, and another fellow Texan. So, just in you're in Central Texas. I'm over here in North Texas in the Dallas area. So, um, all right, cool, man. Well, for those who aren't familiar, who don't follow your stuff, give us a little background. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, my name is Sean Chandler. I have a YouTube channel called Sean Chandler Talks About, where I talk about stuff, specifically talk about movies way too much. I started it's just a hobby back in July of 2016. Went to go see Lady Ghostbusters on a date night, and I thought the discourse surrounding it was absolutely insane because
It
it was
was.
either this is the worst movie ever made, it ruined my childhood, or if you don't like this movie, obviously it's because you're a misogynist. And I was like, there's got to be something in the middle. So
Yeah.
posted a review, and I was lucky enough to be able to turn my little hobby into a full time career several years back. So I talk about movies for a living now.
Yeah, and I was explaining you to my wife earlier, and I was like, if I ever need a franchise or a famous director ranked, I know the place to go because
It's
you
those little.
your movie reviews are great, but I always look forward to what you're going to say about whatever
Yeah.
franchise A, B, or C, and then whatever director. You did that Ridley Scott list, and I was like, man, I admire it because you're a busy dude, and that must have been a ton of work.
Mm-hmm. And with all of those, I don't do any rankings based off old memories. So everything I had to have watched within the last 2 years. So going back and watching all this stuff. A lot of first time watches in there, but it's interesting the way life kind of has its twists and turns. I
Right.
never thought I'd be known for being the ranking guy. It wasn't like a goal in life. Just I like movies. Started talking about movies on the internet, and
Right.
then I literally 9 months into my channel, I was thinking about quitting, and I looked at the numbers and I went, if I do a movie review, it gets like 100 views, and if I do a ranking, it gets like 500 views.
Right.
What if I just double down on that? And that little thought literally changed the trajectory of my life.
That's
Which
hilarious, man.
yeah, it's fun, especially when you can like pinpoint the moment where you're like, that thought, that was the best thought I ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like I do just short movie reviews, but then on my YouTube channel, I mostly do kind of like commentary sort of
Mhm.
things. I didn't want to just do the review thing, but to each their own. And I love your stuff. I mean, I
Mhm.
think what the algorithm loves you. I think if you type in movie review on YouTube now, your name's going to be one of the first people that pops up. So that's pretty awesome, dude. I mean, that's your stuff came across my feed. I want to say maybe over a year ago or so.
Mhm.
And I've been hooked ever since. I've gone down a Sean Chandler rabbit hole once
I
or twice.
appreciate it.
I'm not sitting there glazing you, as the kids would say, but I enjoy your stuff. I like I think one of the things that I enjoy the most is it comes across your true passion for the
Mhm.
films, for just movies in general. You
Mhm.
can tell when somebody is either making content for the sake of content or if they're making
Yeah.
content because they truly believe in it. And from my perspective, yours is the latter. You can really tell
Mhm.
that you love movies and you just love to talk about movies.
Yeah. Well, and that's where hopefully I come off like with someone that has just as much passion of a normal moviegoer,
Sure.
but ideally have a little bit more knowledge. And I
Hmm.
can articulate what people are feeling, and so relatable, but also feel like you getting something out of it. That's what I aim for. And it's been interesting to have been on this adventure long enough that there's been different phases in movies, in particular with Marvel, that was so popular, and now it's a little bit more polarizing than it
Hmm.
used to be. And there's people that have interpreted that as me changing. I'm like, I don't think I've changed. Like I'm middle aged. I'm pretty set in my ways.
Right.
But just because I used to be a little bit more excited about certain things than I am now, it's not that I've changed. It's that I think the quality's dipped. But yeah, it's fascinating that there's still so much to be excited about with movies and so much to be frustrated about with movies.
Exactly.
But that's always the case.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm roughly the same age as you. You got a few years on me, but we come up in the same
Mhm.
generations. I don't know if you were like me, but I was in high school when the first Lord of the Rings movie came out, and I just remember, you and I probably did the same thing where we'd stand in line for those midnight
Mhm.
showings, with our friends, and then hang out in our cars afterwards, smoking cigarettes, discussing those, like,
Right.
those are the days I long for. I do have a love-hate relationship with certain movies nowadays. I really look forward to some. But then, there's those obvious ones. Like you said, I used to be real passionate about the Marvel movies, and now it's kind of a let's see what they do next sort of
Mhm.
feeling on the
Mhm.
matter. Um,
Right. And that's you know, Hollywood has always had their
Mhm.
phases. And you can if you look at the flavor of the 70s and then you look at the flavor of the 80s,
Right.
they're two very different eras of films.
Sure.
And great for different reasons and flawed in their own ways.
Right.
And that's always kind of been the case. We're in kind of a weird era right now that is so based on trying to recapture the magic of the past with sequels and remakes,
Yeah.
or at least for big budget films. There's
Mhm.
like people say there's no originality in Hollywood. Like, no, there is.
No, there
It's just
is.
not the stuff that gets budgets.
Right.
There's
Right.
plenty of
And there's
small budget things.
and one of those movies we'll probably talk about a little bit later here today. Um, so one of the things that I um, really do like about talking to people about movies, just quote unquote normies, is I do hear a lot, and I'm sure you get this too. They're like, "Hey, we don't, Hollywood just doesn't make good movies anymore." And I'm like, "No, the
Yeah.
problem is you don't watch enough movies. There's a lot of great movies that come out. The problem is they're in and out in the theater. Nobody hears about it, and then they're on streaming, a couple weeks later, and they just get lost in the shuffle.
Mhm.
There's a quantity problem, not a quality problem, as far as I'm
Right.
concerned. But there is indeed a quality problem. I'm not going to put that past people. People aren't stupid. They can definitely tell that there's some issues going on here, especially when the other part of that too, I think, is that people our age are now starting to run movie companies, and we love the nostalgia.
Mhm.
Deadpool and Wolverine, I loved it, but mostly it was a big part of my love for that movie was
Mhm.
all the stuff that they threw into there to
Mhm.
to appease people like me and like you. And there's people that don't like that, but there's people that like it, or there's people that just don't pay any attention to it. So um I'm interested to know where do you what really spawned your love for movies and film and kind of got you into this realm.
Um.
I'm sure it's a long
So
story, but
yeah, that's what's the quick version.
yeah.
You know, um, I kind of always had a bit of a nerdy fandom kind of family.
Okay.
So, or at least my mother, sister, and I. So my earliest memories of the theater were Batman '89,
Mhm.
and we were all in. And right over there, I still have my whole set of trading cards for Batman and Batman Returns. That
That's
same
amazing.
summer, we went to go see Star Trek Five, and I don't even know exactly where our fans or family's love for Star Trek came from, but somewhere in there. We got super into Star Trek and went to Star Trek conventions all throughout the 90s. And whenever the internet came around, I was very quick to want to put my ideas out there and play around and just get into the look up all the nerdy stuff on the internet that you can find.
Right.
And even in the early days when there wasn't all that much, unlike now. And so I put up a Jackie Chan fan webpage in 1998. And I've just kind of always done that. The things that
Okay.
I'm passionate about I dive in deep and want to learn about them, and then I just like to share my ideas. So I was on the IMDb bulletin boards. I had blogs here and there, and even before Sean Chandler Talks About started, there's videos on my YouTube channel from 3 years before that are like all the prototypes
Okay.
of the one was called like the non-essentials, and it was just, but it was the same thing, me trying to
Sure.
talk about movies, but I hadn't, stuck to it. I didn't have the brand yet that clicked. But yeah, that's just movies always kind of been my escape, my thing that I've enjoyed going to and had fun with and played around with, and true escapism. That's what I've enjoyed about them.
Yeah, yeah. I actually that I relate to that strongly. So where do you kind of feel about the shape of the industry nowadays? Do you still when you talk to people about movies who just just everyday folk, your family, things of that nature? How do you how do you see it kind of shaping up? It seems it's from my perspective, it seems like um it's in dire straits to a certain extent. People still
Yeah.
get excited for like those nostalgia movies, Deadpool, Wolverine, the new Superman coming out, things of that nature. But I also do have some concerns because like, there was a great movie that just came out this weekend and nobody went and saw it. So,
Right.
so there's still movies that come out. Like I think Wicked, it really had some pretty good word of mouth. People, at least I think people like you and myself, we weren't really expecting much from it, but then it just kind of knocked our,
Mhm.
blew our doors down. So yeah, I'm just interested to hear your take on that from someone who maybe has a little bit more knowledge and is dealing with it on a day to day basis.
Yeah, there's a lot to dive in when it
There
comes
is.
to the modern state of movies, because there's so many different factors that kind of shape where we're at right now, where it feels like Hollywood had this gigantic crescendo in the end of the last decade, where
Hmm.
such a like an unusually large number of movies were making $1 billion, and they were sequels and remakes,
Yep.
and these franchises that went on forever. And Hollywood went, that's it right there. We got to keep doing. Let's double and triple down on that. And at the exact same time, the streaming boom happened.
Hmm.
And at the exact same time, then COVID happened, and then strikes
Yeah.
happened, and that's so much disruption at a point in time where they chose to double down on a strategy that probably had already reached its peak of, we're gonna like it. Numbers were inflated there for a little bit, where
Yeah.
it's like, why on earth are so many Fast and the Furious movies making $1 billion? That's kind of weird. Like, why on earth did Lion King 2019 make $1.6 billion? Why is this the highest grossing animated film of all time and it doesn't have any fans? That's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of this odd moment where they picked a strategy that did like bring in the grosses, but it wasn't sustainable. And then they doubled down when all this other stuff happened.
Yeah.
And they'd already mined some of this stuff too far. So all of a sudden it felt like there's dramatic diminishing returns, and it feels like we have sequelitis. A lot of these franchises feel played out. I mean, the DCEU quite literally just crashed and burned. I mean, DC just absolutely destroyed itself over the last 5 years. And you look at 2018, Aquaman was the highest grossing DC film of all time. The next year, Joker, highest grossing R rated movie of all time, first to hit $1 billion. And then they just shipwrecked with movies that nobody wanted, bad sequels, nonsense. Marvel, I think they were so focused for so long, and then they went, let's keep putting out the same number of movies, and let's put out 17 TV shows every year. Well, it's not a matter of just having money and release dates.
Yeah.
Uh, the ultimate resource is human talent
Right.
and good ideas. And so you can throw all the money you want at bad ideas, and you get She-Hulk and you get some of these other Secret Invasion stuff. And so they diluted their brands.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of that stuff kind of going on. And Hollywood became addicted to $1 billion films. And they think you get $1 billion film by throwing $250 million at a known brand or The Rock, which that one in particular is very weird, because why on earth did Red One cost $250 million? But they just throw money at a brand, and because in 2019 it worked, it still works, right? And it hasn't worked for 5 years. It's more and more there's like one movie every 3 months that really captures all of popular culture. But they're budgeting for these films as if those are coming out every 2 weeks, and they're just not anymore. It like Disney had like $8 billion films in 2019.
Yeah.
That's so weird and
Yeah.
not sustainable. And then they keep throwing money at these things. With $300 million for Snow White, that's crazy. That's insane.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it's so much of this, all of your eggs in one basket, and there's no money to spend $50 million to tell an original story, create the new franchise, develop the new talent. So what you end up doing is you have these indie directors that make low budget directors that make a great $10 million film that gets prestige, it's profitable, and then they go, since there's nothing in the middle, they take that creative director and they make them a McDonald's manager for DC or like a Disney live action remake or a Marvel movie where they're just working for Mickey Mouse but they're just basically a McDonald's manager for a big producer run franchise. And so you don't get that creative talent getting to make their cool thing in the middle that can become the next Star Wars or become the next John Wick or whatever it is, because we're not making those mid-budget films because we're spending all of our money on Snow White and Red One or whatever. I guess Red One is an original story, but it's like the stupidest project to give that kind of money that you can imagine.
Agreed.
So anyway, there you go. There's my take on it.
Yeah.
Let every studio pick two of these big movies, and then the other four that you're going to spend $300 million on. Don't do that. Just give all that money, make 7 movies that cost a fraction of that amount, and discover new things. There you go. There's my take.
Right. Right. So essentially, long story short, they need to curate better. It's Hollywood's addicted to something called unaided awareness. Are you familiar with that strategy? It's a marketing term. So there's a book, what was it, Save the Cat, I believe.
Yep.
That was written a while ago. And so it's the elevator pitch. When you're coming up with a new movie, you want to pitch this movie to, pitch this idea to the execs and stuff like that. Well, there's already a brand that people know about. Okay, so if you're making if you're making the 50th Ghostbusters movies, people know what that is. You don't need to pitch this. You don't need to try to sell people to come see it. People are going to go see that movie regardless. So there's definitely the problem there. And then you have the movies like
the marketing department determines what it's greenlit.
Exactly.
And then the part where it gets extra stupid is, well, we're doing Ghostbusters, but we've got a clever spin on it. They're girls. How many times they do the same thing? The same thing. Like, we've got a fresh spin.
Right.
They're
and
girls.
then and then if fans don't like it, they instantly have to turn around and play the blame game.
Why do you hate
guys
women?
Are this and that and this and that, instead of just saying, hey, maybe we should reflect on why people didn't like this movie. There's not a whole lot of reflection, I feel like, these days.
Yeah. Right. That's like Lady Ghostbusters. Were there people that were just mean, sexist, racist, whatever? Of course, there's a lot of people on the internet, and they go to the internet because they're angry and weird, and they want to do something where they can make a splash. The internet allows you to do that without the consequences. So, of course, there's those people. But it's a movie with like 7 dance numbers. Everybody keeps breaking into dance. Half the movie is just like improv, like people standing there like, look at that guy's suit. What a stupid suit.
Right.
Like, that's not a joke. The original one had a really witty, clever script. This is improv people standing there just riffing.
Right.
And then they put that in the movie. Like, did you write a script, or did you just want everyone to wing it the whole time?
And that was real popular at the time, was just the directors let them kind of spitball and do these improv scenes, and then they'll put it in the final cut of the movie.
And whenever they announced the project, a bunch of people, and I think I even went on the internet, like, I bet they're going to get several ladies from Saturday Night Live. We'll get like Kirsten Wiig, maybe Melissa McCarthy will show up.
Yep. And
that's exactly what they did. And that's what the movie is. It's like Saturday Night Live bits, skits tied together. And you go, this is not like, were people ridiculously harsh on it? Of course they were. But that's because you took something that is really special and you made it into just kind of this mediocre thing.
Yeah, right.
You have to be able to like turn that around and go, no, we screwed up. Like that was a bad direction to go. Nobody wanted that. And the fact that like we're still like they so I grew up watching Matlock,
Uh-huh.
the Andy Griffith Show.
Yep.
Or not the Andy Griffith Show. That's something different.
Yeah, but Andy Griffith was Matlock.
Than Matlock. And I heard that they were doing a remake of it. I went, let me guess, it's gender swapped.
Yep.
And it is. Kathy Bates is Matlock. And it was I just said that because they do that with everything. Like
I know,
it's
they do.
just what they do. And that's so lazy.
It is.
Like you have to have something actually different. And that's their whole strategy. Like you said, the brand awareness, like it has to be something, but there's a clever spin and it's the exact same clever spin every single time.
I know. Yeah, and it's it's funny as you say the gender swap Matlock. And if you were a studio head, who would you put in that role? Kathy Bates, probably, to be the Andy Griffith. That's
right. Yeah, right. Who's the modern day Andy Griffith of our time? That's old enough to be like right.
Yeah, then you put Kathy Bates, you go, of course, genius.
Like, who's going to complain that Kathy Bates is starring in a TV?
Yeah. I know, man. I know. There's a lot to be frustrated about, and I don't know if you saw Tarantino recently was just like, what even is a movie anymore? You go through all this work, you put in all this time, you hire crews, you throw all this money at it, and then it's in the theaters for 4 weeks before you can just get it at home. I think COVID really kind of set that in motion, and they haven't really found a way to move away from it. I know when Five Nights at Freddy's came out, it had a huge box office return the opening weekend, but it was also, you could watch it at home at the same time. But people who are going to watch it at home are going to want to stay at home to watch it. But then there's the other aspect of it too, where I know I saw you tweeted the other day that you took your kids to see Dogman, and you're just like, you look at you get like sticker shock when you see how much it costs just to take, a few kids to see a movie. It's unbelievable. I took my kids to see that movie over the week, and I'm just like, all right, well, I guess I got to take out a second mortgage before I go and do this. People are talking during the movie the whole time. You got people that can't put their cell phones down for an hour and a half. So overall, I mean, obviously I sound a little negative in that, but I mean, it's a problem. You and I are at the theaters all the time, so we see it probably more than other people do. And even then it's still frustrating. But if you just, want a weekend out and it's going to cost you a whole arm and a leg to take your family out to the movies, it's not, I don't know. It's a tough experience, I feel like, anymore.
Right. Well, I mean, it's like they keep learning all the wrong lessons about how to, like, oh, box office is down, let's just increase the price. Well, one of the reasons box office is down is because it's too expensive, so less people go. And so instead of like just casually going to go see something like a companion, that like these kind of smaller films that people just go for the big event things, like more and more, you're only going to go to a handful of movies every year, and it's going to be Barbie, and it's going to be Wicked, and it's going to be whatever that, Sonic the Hedgehog, it's Moana 2, and you just have these small number of films that make all the money, and you just make it so difficult for people to go when you're charging so much for tickets.
Right.
And the experience is not what they're trying to improve.
Yeah.
That so many theaters do not enforce the rules. So you go to the movies, sometimes I'm at press screenings and there's people up in front and there's like a white screen. I'm like, this is a press screening. We're here for our job. There's literally security guys in the room, not walking up saying, you're at a press screening. Like, we can literally kick you out right now for pulling out your phone. And they're not doing it. Like, you never see them do that. And so the experience itself is not usually a great experience. And one of the ones that I think people like don't discuss enough is that it's not just that movies are at home much quicker.
Right.
It's that home systems are exponentially better than they were in the year 2000.
That's true. When it's affordable.
Like everyone has at least a 1080 TV. Most people now have 4K TVs, and like my eyes aren't even good enough to see 4K. But you go back to the year 2000, and we all had these big gigantic box TVs that were at DVD quality.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was fuzzier, your sound system wasn't as good. Now there's so many options for highly affordable HD televisions that are bright and they're crisp, and you can get a sound bar with a subwoofer, and it's a great experience. You can pause the movie, go to the bathroom, whatever you want to do, or you can go to the movies where you pay a huge amount of money to be in an environment that 50-50, whether it'll be fun that you're with people or
Yeah.
it's like, oh, what a terrible audience.
Right. Yeah. I was at the early press screening for Joker 2, and there was people dressed up as the Joker. But like you said, I think there had to be 20 people in there filming scenes from the movie, taking selfies during the movie. And then there was probably about 20 people that walked out of the movie, the particular one I went to. So then there was people pulling out their phones, filming that. So it's just, the day and age that we live in, people just seem they can't live without their phones. And it's unfortunate for things like that. But that's also one of the reasons I like going to the movie theaters, that I can put my phone away. I can just be there to escape for a couple hours.
Right. And that's like, it's at home when I'm on my couch, it is difficult to not pick up my phone.
Right.
At the theater, it feels weird to pull out my phone.
Yeah.
As someone that's just as technologically addicted as everyone else.
Uh-huh.
And so like it's a nice escape. It's the most immersive way to watch a movie. And then there's so much just horrible behavior that social media is encouraging, where people are like, what's your favorite sequence from Wicked? There's my, and like just filming the movie, posting it on the internet publicly, which is a crime.
Like, yeah, it is. It's a federal crime.
Like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And they're doing it. And there's, no shortage of us that'll like call them out on Twitter or whatever. Like, what are you guys doing? This is not okay. And they're like, this is part of the cinematic experience. We're promoting the movie. We're doing our part. Like, you're pulling out your phone in the middle of the film?
I know.
Are you freaking kidding me?
I know. And then there was that tweet that went super viral when Wicked first came out, and someone posted it up. It's like, show me your favorite scenes from Wicked. And it got lambasted, which I was happy to see. But that's a pretty frequent issue. And it's something that I don't know how we fix it, unless it's like the movie theater almost takes an Alamo Drafthouse approach to it and just says, hey, before you walk in here, movies go into like these lockers, get your own personal codes, keep them out of the movie. You could live for an hour and a half or 2 hours without
little cubby boxes.
A little cubby box.
Put
or
your
something.
phone in here.
Yeah. Well, I know comedy clubs are starting to do stuff like that. So
when I went to my friend Cody Leach was in town for Fantastic Fest. We went to Joe Rogan's comedy.
The mothership. Yeah.
And we walked in, and like there's a whole etiquette of like where you had to stand in line, and you walked in, and everyone's phone was put in a bag and like sealed, like a thick bag, so nothing could be recorded through it. And so you literally checked your phone before you went in.
Yeah. I think that's not the worst idea. I mean, maybe that helps a little bit. And then it's like, hey, if you need to use your phone or whatever, step out, and there's a designated area to go talk on it or something. The other problem I personally have with movies is that the trailers are so long. They show a million ads before movies and stuff. And I thought when COVID kicked in that was they were going to kind of be like, all right, people just kind of want to get to the movie. They don't want to have to sit for 30 minutes before the movie starts. But it seems like it's gotten worse, at least from my perspective. And by the, if you go see a 2-hour movie, you go at 6 o'clock at night, you're getting home by 9:30 or something. It's not a, it's a lot for people to endure, and especially movies now with the attention spans that they are. It seems like movies are starting to get longer and longer as well. So yeah, it's a whole process now just to go to the movies.
It's so like the most press screenings are like on the opposite end of town from where I live, because I'm way out in the suburbs, up north, and then the press screenings are almost like South Austin.
Okay.
And so it's just a long drive to get there, and they want you to show up 30 minutes early, and then the movie's 3 hours long. So when I can go to one that's at the theater closest to my house and it's only 90 minutes long, and I'm like, wait a minute, going to the movies? I can leave my house, see the movie, and be back, and it's just about 2 hours? That's so refreshing. It's like
Yeah.
feel like relaxed, like wonderful. Cause like I'll leave to go to the movies at 5:30 to go to the press screening or whatever because I need to
Yeah.
eat before because I'm leaving
Yeah.
early enough that I get there, eat at the theater or whatever because it's at the ball a lot of them, and then the movie's 3 hours long and so I'm home by 10 o'clock. It's like I was gone 5 hours.
5 hours. Wow. That's crazy. So, all right, before we move on, I was going to ask, do you know what the martini shot is on a movie set?
No.
It's actually the last shot of the day for the
Okay.
production. So it's the final shot before what they did back in old Hollywood is they'd call martini shot and then you'd go get a martini afterwards. So that's where the name comes from. I like to ask all my guests. So all right, well let's move over to a little bit of news that we got here. Let's pull up. Okay. You see that okay? All right,
Yes.
so this was the box office poll for this weekend. We had Dog Man at number one, and then coming in at a far number two was Companion. And I saw your review the other day. You went and took the kids to see Dog Man. I
Mm-hmm.
think you kind of felt about that movie the way I did. It was, I mean, it was. I've taken the kids to see worse. I'm not their target demographic. I'm fully aware of that. But my middle kid is 8 years old, and he's read all the books, plays the video game on his Nintendo Switch. He's obviously the target demographic, and 10 out of 10, he loved it. My oldest is 12. She read the books when she was a little bit younger. She wanted to see the movie, didn't much care for it. And then the youngest is 7. She likes every movie, so she liked it, obviously. But was that kind of the general consensus that you got from your kiddos?
Yeah, yeah. The son really. So my middle child, who's 10, Chloe,
Okay.
is the film critic of them that
Is he?
has discerning taste. So Liam, my oldest, he's pretty simple. It's kind of like if it's his thing, then he loves it.
Right.
He just doesn't care about anything else. So
Okay.
like Five Nights at Freddy's movie, he likes Five Nights at Freddy's, so that's the best movie he's ever seen. That's he likes Dog Man, so this is the best movie he's ever seen.
Right.
But then anything outside of what he likes, he's not interested in it. And then Chloe's much more kind of discerning and broader tastes and things, and she had more issues with it.
Is that your oldest?
She's the middle child.
She's the
The
middle
oldest
child.
is
Okay.
my son, so
Okay.
uh, but he's just
And maybe it's a boy
she
girl thing. My
yeah.
my oldest, who's 12, she's the one I took to the early screening of Wicked, and that was like the best movie experience of her entire life.
Yeah.
And then I took her to this, and she was just like, it was boring. I didn't really get into it. I didn't think it was that funny. But then the middle child was like, it was everything I could have ever imagined it would be. So,
Right.
so it sounds like we kind of have similarities there with the old kids. Okay, so number two was Companion, and it made $9.5 million this weekend. What I thought was interesting is that it said it made its budget back, which is encouraging, but I'm also discouraged because it had rave reviews. I don't know, I didn't see your review on it, but I loved it. I thought it was highly unique, very original. Um, I wouldn't really classify it as horror. I know that they're kind of selling it that way, but it felt far more like a sci-fi movie to me,
Mhm.
like almost a sci-fi satire. But
Mhm.
when people are just like they don't make good movies anymore, I'm like because when they do, you don't go watch them. So that's
Right.
I was interested to hear your take on something like that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah,
I think somewhat we talked about this earlier of the how Hollywood loves elevator pitches and
yeah,
how easy is it to market. And I think that's one of the big issues is there's a lot of the most a lot of the movies that are have some of the most interesting concepts to them. How do you market them without spoiling the movie?
that was the
And
problem I
so
had with this movie. Yeah,
Companion, I watched the first teaser and
mhm.
it's just her with her hand over the
Yeah, yeah,
candle, and I went, whatever this is, I want to see
yeah.
this. And then I watched the second trailer, not realizing I was watching the second trailer, and it gave away too
Gave away the
much.
whole movie. Yeah,
It's a movie built entirely around a series of twists and reveals that cause you to reinterpret what came before. And so if the trailer gives you two of those,
hmm,
well, the whole gimmick of you experience one thing and then you reinterpret it is gone.
yeah.
And so, but like, how do you properly market this movie to get people, the right people to show up, to know the type of experience they're going to have without revealing what's really going on in the film.
Yeah,
That's really tough.
yeah, I agree with you. That was one of the things where I when I was watching the movie, the trailer, because I did see the second trailer like you, it took away from my overall experience of the movie
Right.
because the way everything kind of sets up in the
Mhm.
beginning of the first act,
First
you're
30 minutes of the
intrigued and stuff,
movie,
but there's also the back of your mind where like, oh, but this is what is actually
I
going
know where
on.
this is headed. Yeah.
Right.
And all of
So
that, if you didn't know that, where it's going, and watched, you have one experience, and then you go, oh. And if you watch it a second time, you'd realize even the language that they're using is telling you what's happening.
right.
But they put it right in the trailer.
They did. They did.
It's
They
right there.
did.
And so,
It's right there.
like, this movie is clearly written for you to not have that information.
Yep.
But how do you
You got to make
properly
money.
market this
I
film
know.
without putting that in there? I don't know.
I don't either. I don't have an answer for you, but I also know that because of all that, like I said, it took away from my overall experience in the movie. And so when I did my review, I was like, hey, the less you know about this movie, if you can avoid watching that second trailer, do that because it's going to be a much better movie experience for you than it probably was for me. And that said, I still really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a very unique, beautifully shot. Sophie Thatcher, I think, is probably I said she's probably the new Scream Queen. She's
Yeah.
from the last few
It's a
things I've
good
seen her in.
back to back.
Yeah, yeah. Two great movies back to back. And the I can't remember the name. You probably know better than me. The director of that, Drew something. Anyway, he's got a unique spin on movies. If I was Hollywood, I'd be like, let's hire him for anything he pitches. Let's take it because his movies, he's 2 for 2 as far as I'm concerned.
Let's put him on the next Marvel movie.
So I was hearing some scuttlebutt. This is a sidebar, but I was hearing some scuttlebutt that Kevin Feige was talking with George Miller about the next Thor movie. Have you heard anything about this? I mean, it's all internet buzz, but I was
Yeah.
like, man, that's the one guy should do a Thor movie, but I don't know if I want him to do a Thor movie.
Well, yeah. So there's been a little bit of that, those murmurs out there
Yeah,
ever since it became pretty clear Taika Waititi's not returning,
right.
and nobody wants him to return at
No,
this
that
point in
last one
time.
was a disaster.
Um, right, and just made it pretty clear his feelings on Thor and the MCU as a whole.
Yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah.
okay, if you're this irreverent and if you can't take anything here seriously, please don't do anything else.
Right.
Stop it. Um, so his name's been circulating because of Furiosa, and there's
Yeah.
been the chatter and the murmurs. So I've heard that, and that buzz, and it popped back up this last week, but
Yeah.
I'd heard it before too. So will anything come of that? I don't know. George Miller is like about 80 years old right
Yeah.
now.
No he's no spring chicken, that's for sure.
What do you do with that? He's a yeah, he's an interesting director because he'll
He
do
is.
Happy Feet,
Yeah.
he'll do
Babe.
Babe,
Yep.
and then he'll do Fury Road.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I've got my Mad Max shirt on too. I've always, I wasn't looking forward to Furiosa. And then when I saw it, I go, he's one of those guys I should never doubt, ever doubt,
Right.
because he knows how to make a movie a spectacle from the action scenes to Chris Hemsworth, who I've always thought was his acting abilities were never fully utilized because he's just so damn good looking,
Right.
just a beefy, tall guy with great charisma. But he's actually when even a little bit sprinkled in those extraction movies. Those are crazy balls to the wall action films. You can see that the guy has it. And then when I saw him in Furiosa, I was like, man, he's not. People may mention him a little bit, but I don't think he's going to get the recognition he deserves because he was phenomenal in that movie. I thought
Right.
personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting situation because you have someone that is widely regarded as maybe the most handsome man on the
Right.
planet, one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, and in this other regard, he's dramatically underappreciated
Yeah.
for some of his other skills.
Yeah.
Like even the fact that like he has really good comedic timing, like that's more obvious now because the last two Thor movies were straight up comedies, but like that hadn't really been utilized all that well and he was doing like side part, like he's in Ghostbusters
Yeah,
2016. He's
he's the
in the
best part of that
Vacation
movie.
remake. Yeah, like whenever he shows up, he's really funny and he's self-depreciating. He's perfectly fine making fun of himself,
Yeah.
and he can act.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets lost in the fact of just the pure movie stardom of him and just how good looking he is. And it's so easy to, and that he gets into such good shape. It's so easy to miss. Oh, he's actually talented too.
Yeah.
He has all of the things.
Yeah. He's got a lot of the 80s, 90s action hero charisma about him, but then when you break it down, he actually does have the talent that some of those stars didn't necessarily have back in the day. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. I know that he has said multiple times he wants to take a break from acting and kind of take a step back a little bit, but then he keeps pushing out projects. So I'm here for it. I'm always enjoy watching him in pretty much anything he does. I mean, I would love to see another Thor movie if for anything we can get the bad taste. If you have Christian Bale as the villain in a Thor movie and it's the worst one, and that's considered, I mean, for me personally, I dislike it more than I dislike the second one. Then you know that like they didn't do justice.
Right. Well, it's like the second one is just painfully mediocre.
That's
but
it.
If there's nothing about it that's actually like offensive.
It's not offensively bad. It's just forgettable.
Yeah. Just and in particular, at that point in time, it was like it really stood out because it seemed like there was so much flavor to almost all the other movies, and then you have this one that's just like that's just there. But if you rewatch it, like it's probably better than you remember,
right?
Because you don't remember it because it's not memorable. Versus Love and Thunder is very memorable. It is very remarkable. It is worthy of remarks. Not good remarks, but you don't remember good things about it.
Yeah.
It is remarkable for how ill-conceived it is, how much like Thor Love and Thunder is such a great concept for a Thor movie that it's a Thor movie built around the theological and philosophical problem of evil.
Sure.
If God is all good and all powerful, why do bad things happen?
Right.
And so you have someone that faces the worst loss that a parent can have, watches their child die right in front of them, while feeling the gods did nothing, and then is given the tool to strike back at these gods that did not care for his child. That's a really interesting setup for a Thor movie. So what did they do? They made the goofiest movie in the entire MCU.
Yeah.
That involves like a love triangle between Jane, Thor, and a hammer.
Yeah.
And there's in New Asgard, there is an ice cream shot called Infinity Cones with Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet holding a cone. A weapon of genocide that led to the apocalypse. And Taika Waititi, like, that's really funny. Get it? Let's make a joke. That's like, Auschwitz hot dogs or whatever. Like you'd be like, gosh. Like,
hey now.
It's so gross. That's just, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And then that was to Taika Waititi, like Infinity Cones. And people tried to defend it, like, well, it could be referring to Iron Man's gauntlet, like, but it's not. That's not Iron Man's gauntlet.
It's not.
Like, and even in that context, why are you trying to defend a terrible joke?
Yeah.
And like that to me is you're breaking your universe. It's not just that it's a bad movie, which it is. You're breaking your universe. You don't take your own universe seriously anymore. You treat your own universe like a joke. And you did it with a Thor movie where the Guardians of the Galaxy are in it. You got comic book movie royalty, Christian Bale to be an Oscar
and Russell
winner,
Crowe.
Christian Bale. And Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Multiple Oscar winners are appearing in your movie, and you wasted all of it.
All of it. And even still, Christian Bale was amazing what little screen time he had in that movie. And you're just, that whole movie was such a disappointment, man. I'm always with the good insight there, Sean. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about.
What are we talking about? Rabbit trail?
Hey, we could go on these tangents all day, but I know you got other things to do. So, all right. So this, if you've been anywhere on Twitter this week, you would have seen a gazillion tweets about all the things that are happening with the Scream franchise. It's like every character they've ever killed off is coming back. I've had some fun with some of these tweets. I'm sure you've seen them too, where it's just like, breaking news. Nosferatu just signed on for Scream 7. It's essentially got to that point. So while I do, like we talked about earlier, I'm a millennial. I do appreciate some good nostalgia. I saw that Courtney Cox is signing on. We got Matthew Lillard signing on. My, I'm excited for the movie. I know that they've had the production has been pretty much hell. They had a whole cast that were going a whole different direction with it. Then Melissa Barrera says one thing that Hollywood doesn't like, and she's blackballed. Jenna Ortega doesn't like it. She drops out. They lose their director, and they have to go a whole different direction. Well, now it sounds like they want to earn all their Scream fans back. They got Kevin Williamson, who wrote the first Scream. He's writing, he's directing this. They're bringing back, it seems like, everybody who's ever been in a Scream movie before 2015. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on this matter, because to me, it's there's pluses and minuses to it, but what I think kind of bothers me a little bit, at least from a fan's perspective, is I would have liked to have seen these things and not known about them beforehand.
Right. First thing, I want to correct something.
Okay, correct something.
I'm correcting for a good reason.
Okay.
Not just to be that guy, but
no, it's okay.
You said Kevin Williamson is writing and directing.
Yeah.
He's not writing it. He's not like
he's not
writing the screenplay.
He's directing it,
with
though.
The story. He's directing it, though.
Right. Okay.
And so and the reason that's important is because Kevin Williamson is a super famous writer,
yes,
not a super famous director. He has directed things. He's not new to it. But his writing, his wit is the thing that is like, and that was his, Wes Craven directed the earlier films. Yep. Kevin Williamson wrote them. And so the reason this is important to me is that all of this feels like we're trying to hire people with borrowed trust.
Right.
So Kevin Williamson, to Scream fans, has a lot of borrowed trust.
He does.
He's not even writing it. It's not like he was like, I got a great idea for a new Scream movie. No. How do you earn back the trust of frustrated Scream fans? You attach the name Kevin Williamson, despite the fact that he's not actually doing the thing that he's best at and the thing that he previously did in this franchise. That's the reason I wanted to specifically correct that.
Oh, that's good.
But then likewise, how do you earn trust? Let's bring back actors that people like. So fans have been doing the Stu's alive forever. Like, this has been the internet fan theory since Scream 5 came out. Like, when's Stu coming back? Mm-hmm. And then they announce it on the project where they're trying to earn trust. That, to me, is why all of this makes me so skeptical.
Sure.
Because it doesn't feel like they sat down and they went, what's the best Scream story we can tell? Mm-hmm. And then they went through everything and they went, all right, this is it. This is the best, interesting direction to go with the franchise. Feels like, we've got a dumpster fire. This thing imploded. It is really bad PR. You can just go on the internet, and there is a Jenna Ortega stands. That is not a small fan base. That is like, for a generation, she's one of the hottest actors out there, right there, actresses out there, and then only benefited from Beetlejuice killing it once again, showing that she's a big deal, and she's not coming back. And the other stars not coming back, and the rationale doesn't feel right. Like, it's actively offensive to, in our polarized times where everybody does this. This ties to one of those things for the last 2 years, had people doing this, and she picked a side that most people in the movie space agree with her position on it.
Sure.
And she was fired for it. And so that's like a double whammy. She was fired for something that a lot of people agreed with what she was saying.
Right.
That's a big dumpster fire of trouble and PR nightmare.
Right.
Plus, Jenna Ortega's gone. So how do you win people back? You throw every name that you can at them. Like, Nev, we wouldn't pay him enough on the last one. Yep. Well, here's that extra dump truck of money you asked for.
Yeah, here's the Brinks truck.
Nev, right. So Nev's coming back. Nev, remember that she's actually coming. She's the star again. She's not just a cameo. She's the star again. You remember Kevin Williamson? Remember him? He's coming back too. He's not writing it, but he's coming back. He's the director. You know how you guys have been talking about Stu coming back? Stu's coming back, everybody. We got Stu coming back. We got everybody. Remember Scream 3? Everybody's wait, no, that's nobody's favorite. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Scott Foley's coming back
he's
too.
coming back too. Yeah. And Emma Roberts is coming back. Yeah. It's yeah, I think you're right. It's probably putting up a lot of window dressing to disguise what's actually going on inside.
That's what's frustrating. That
yeah.
if we were doing the Melissa Jenna version of Scream 7 and they said Matthew Lillard was coming back, I'd be like, I'm cool with that. Let's see what they're doing. I've shown my son the first 2 Scream movies, and as I mentioned earlier, he's obsessed with Five Nights at Freddy's, and his favorite is the villain, played by Matthew Lillard. Yep. So he's like kind of obsessed with Matthew Lillard, and like every other kid in the last 20 years, of course, he's watched some Matthew Lillard Scooby-Doo.
Sure, of course.
So there's a lot there that I'd be like all for it, until it feels like it's desperation.
Yeah,
that it's the gimmick. It's it's same thing with what the MCU is doing of like, we can't set up phase 6. We can't set up the next Avengers movie. We lost Kang. So what do? Let's bring back the writer, director, and star of the last movie.
Yeah.
Well, isn't this brilliant? This is so creative. Right. You're just doing what you did the last time. Right. And so, once again here, people are angry. What do? Let's bring everybody back.
Yep. Yeah, that's a lot. Those are some good points. I mean, of course we're going to see it, but I think it's going to be one of those where people are going to show up for the first weekend, because they're excited about it, but then they're going to get the buzz. Because I was actually, the newer ones weren't without their issues. I had some problems with those movies, but I also thought they were fun, and it was heading in a cool direction. I was interested to see how they were going to finish it off.
Yeah, and in my mind, I think part of even why this is so weird and frustrating to me, I feel like the Scream franchise, it lends itself to doing all kinds of different things. I think they've shackled themselves too much to one city and one set of characters, and you don't need to do that. The nature of the stories, and with Stab being in that universe, and so much of even the plot of the movies we do have is copycat killers. That's just like the formula. You can go anywhere. You can tell a story, and you can do so much different commentary. You don't need to have Nev Campbell. You don't need to have Jenna Ortega. You don't have to have any of these people, and you can play around with it, and you can go way outside the box, but still deliver the Scream experience.
Sure.
A slasher whodunit that is self-aware.
Yep. Very meta. Meta before that was a popular phrase.
Right. Like that's the one that even kind of started so much of this stuff, Kevin Williamson.
Yeah.
But that's not what this feels like. This feels like something else. And in the comments, Cody Leach, my good friend, threw a comment that he said Scream 7 is about to be the Deadpool and Wolverine level of fan service. And it's like,
I was actually correlating the two. I was thinking that might actually been been everyone's kind of take on it. But the people that aren't paying attention to it, that maybe they're in for a nice surprise. But I think you and I are over film Twitter, and that's all it's been in my feed for the last that. And then we could talk about the next thing here, which is Emilia Perez.
Oh,
I said it's yep. Go ahead.
Got to turn my camera off real quick. I'll be right back.
No problem. I'll pull this up while he gets that fixed. Let's see.
All right, I'm good to go.
You're good. Back up. It's always it's fun doing the live streams because you're always just like, what is going to go wrong this time? I try not to be that way, but there's always just one little thing that pops up.
This one, I had a wardrobe change.
Yeah. Let's, ladies and gentlemen, here, let me put this away real fast. Let's pay attention to that. He's got his apparel. He's ready to go. He's ready to talk. So it's a day that ends in Y. So there's all this Emilia Perez drama going on here. So I pulled up an article. It's this past week has been very interesting because so you and I do this for a living. We hear, we see things. I watched Emilia Perez a few months back before it was anything. You know, there wasn't much. There was a little bit of hype on it, I guess you could say, but it wasn't garnering all these awards nominations and things of that nature. And I thought it was a crappy Netflix streaming movie. That's all I really took away from it.
So it was on the short list for a awards group. So I'm in several critics groups, and so I had to watch it to do my vote. And Netflix did a huge push. Like, why do I have an Emilia Perez T-shirt? Because they sent me one. So I'm like, why are they sending me a shirt for this? But they just kept sending me.
Oh my gosh!
So I don't even know what this thing is. But whatever this is, like, we can do an.
We can do a live unboxing.
Like live unboxing.
Let's see what this is.
Woo! There we go.
Oh my gosh! There you go.
Like a full framed Emilia Perez poster
that
amazing. I can now hang in my room or my.
I was gonna say you could put it right back there with all your other memorabilia.
Yep. So I got a new one, but like as we start to realize the way these award seasons work, being in critics groups,
right?
They just started sending Emilia Perez swag and gear out, just excessive amounts of stuff. They got a candle, shirt, multiple posters. Like all this stuff to like put it on your radar. Like, oh, I got to check out this movie.
I guess I got to see
what
how
this is all about. How does this movie get so much buzz and nominations? Because Netflix has Netflix money and they just send crap to everybody. But so it was on my list. So I just looked at I didn't know anything about it. Just looked at the summary and it said Zoe Saldana, cartel boss. So I clicked on it. Yeah. That was all I knew.
Boy, you were in for a ride.
I did not know that it was not in English. Mm-hmm. I did not know it was a musical, and I did not know the nature of the assignment Zoe Saldana was going to have in the movie. So that was a wild ride there.
And you did not know none of the actors were Mexican.
Right.
Shot by a French guy. Directed by a French guy.
Hollywood movie about Mexico shot by a French director with a bunch of non-Spanish speaking lead performers. Most of the leads do not speak Spanish.
Yeah. Yes. What's her name? Blanking on her name. What's the girl? Yeah, Selena Gomez. Selena Gomez. She doesn't even speak Spanish.
Nope.
And yet she did in that movie with a really bizarre. I don't know. There's a lot to unpack here. So what I thought with this movie before this, maybe last week or two, when everything was kind of going AWOL or everything was kind of going crazy on online, is that it felt to me kind of like the Shakespeare in Love of 1998, where Saving Private Ryan was clearly the best movie of that year. But Netflix seemed to be doing some backdoor deals, throwing out some money to people behind the scenes to say, hey, listen, Emilia Perez is your movie this year. And there was reports that Academy voters weren't even watching all the movies that they were nominating. So there was this feeling that I had. I was like, this kind of feels eerily familiar to the 1998 story of Harvey Weinstein essentially buying Shakespeare in Love, the Oscar win that year. This movie makes Shakespeare in Love look like Citizen Kane.
Right. When I think even on that point of like Shakespeare in Love,
it's a good movie.
It's a well-regarded movie. Like that, It was a hit film that people really enjoyed. It's one of the big ones that put Gwyneth Paltrow on the map as a lead. Mm-hmm. Like there's a bunch there that you can celebrate about it. You just go, but really better than Saving Private Ryan?
Yeah.
Like sure, nominated, but beating Saving Private Ryan?
Right.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Versus Emilia Perez. It's the second most nominated film of all time at the Oscars.
Right behind Gone with the Wind, I think.
And there's a couple movies that have 14, and then it has 13.
Yeah, it has 13. It has more than Return of the King, which is the only movie to win 11 Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's tied with Oppenheimer for a number of nominations. And you go, what just happened?
Yeah.
So I like in my video talking about all of this, I was like, I enjoyed the movie more than you did, but I'm still like, this is a weird movie, but
it is a weird movie.
Interesting weird to me. Like I thought just the way that it did transitioned into the songs and it got like surrealist out of the blue and then came out of it. Like I just found that interesting, but I'm like, I'd never rewatched this thing. I
Right.
don't
You
know who
wouldn't have
I
thought much
recommended
about
to
it
me.
after, let's
Yeah,
say the award show wasn't up. You
yeah,
probably would have watched it and been like, it was fine. It was whatever.
yeah. But then record-breaking nominations.
Yeah.
And I said in my video, like, this is weird. Like, why is it so many? And it's the sort of thing where the reason it has such a big target on it is because it's being so over nominated and
Yeah.
winning things it shouldn't be necessarily be winning. And so all of a sudden it's like, what on earth is going
Yeah.
on here? I said this and someone said, like, Sean, like, you're starting to sound like a QAnon
Oh my
conspiracist.
gosh.
like, like, what? The
Yeah.
reason I'm a QAnon conspiracy theorist is because I think Emilia Perez shouldn't be nominated for the same number of Oscars as Oppenheimer,
Right.
more than Return of the King. Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
the internet is so freaking weird sometimes.
It is. It really is. And what's funny though, from the most part, I know that the Rotten Tomatoes score on Amelia Perez is a little bit higher for the critics, but most people I talk to, most critics I know, people who've watched the movie, nobody likes it across the board. It doesn't matter their political affiliation
Right,
or anything. It's just everybody says, "Hey, listen,
right.
this movie's not good," and it's offensive on so many levels to certain
Mm-hmm. It's bad
certain
representation of
yeah,
everything.
yeah, representation things. The French director not putting any Mexicans in a movie that takes place in Mexico. Um, there's a lot of aspects to it here, but that said, there are some things that have come out. I'm not big into cancel culture, but they've been pulling up a lot of Carla. I always forget her name. I got it. It's right here. Let's pull it up. Carla Sofia Gascon's Twitter. They went crazy on it this past week, pulling up old spicy tweets, things from race-based nature, vaccines, things of all kinds of things that you would never expect. She deleted her Twitter, did the thing where she blames everybody else but herself. And then there's also been controversy from what the director himself had said. He said that Spanish is basically a poor people's language, only poor people speaks. So that was kind of what interested in it. And then there's also on top of that, I know the Brutalist has taken the brunt end of this, but there's also apparently AI used in Emilia Perez during Carla Sofia Gascon's singing performances. They actually interspersed. They mixed her audio with some AI audio. So there's an AI controversy with the movie. So all said and done, I saw that there was an award. Which award show was there last night where the Brutalists kind of walked away with everything, and I saw Variety changed their prediction over to Ariana Grande for Best Supporting Actor. The Academy unfollowed Carla Sofia Gascon this past week, so it seems like now they're almost starting to
The Academy
distance.
is doing that stuff now. Go,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. The Academy unfollowed her. What?
It's just crazy, dude. I mean, there's so much to unpack with all this. It is pretty hysterical. One, it shows you that Hollywood has no idea what normal people like because nobody likes this movie.
Right.
And then also apparently, what was it? She made comments that implied without evidence that Fernanda Torres, who's in the movie I'm Still Here, were behind attacks on her. It's all of this feels like middle school drama in real time. So I was curious to see. I mean, it's unavoidable with what we do. So I was curious in some of your thoughts.
I think it's amazing to me that in the year 2025 this stuff can still kind of happen.
Right.
That Netflix wouldn't go through their Twitter beforehand,
Sure.
wouldn't say, "Hey, by the way, if you said crazy stuff on your Twitter account, like maybe delete all of that
Sure.
now before it resurfaces." And especially, like, we're not talking about 10 years ago.
Right.
Like, this is 4 years ago. This is 2020.
Yeah, this isn't from a long. It's not the James Gunn thing that
Right.
reared its head from like 19 years ago or something.
Yeah, like James Gunn, his tweets were from 4 years before Guardians of the Galaxy, and they were
There were jokes. They were done
There were
in
jokes
jest,
in the
right?
early
Yeah.
phases of Twitter, like
Yeah.
from an era of Twitter where it was brand new and we didn't know we'd still be using it 15 years later. We
Right.
still in our brains were like, remember when we were on MySpace for 6 months? Like we didn't know if Twitter was going to be that.
Yeah.
And so it like legitimately was he made sick jokes, like horrible jokes, but nobody thought they were anything but sick
No.
jokes. This was the year 2020. And so you think whenever this film was made, this is just 2-3 years
After that.
detached, and you're like, how could you not know to scrub the internet, clean this up? Like,
Yeah.
what?
There should almost be a stipulation in actors' contracts
Right.
anymore. It's like, hey, if you posted something that's going to come back and bite you in the ass, go
Right.
back and just delete it for our own sake.
Right.
Because it's going to take a little while for people to catch up to it, but once they do, it could open a whole floodgate of certain issues. So
Right. Well, it's like this, some of this stuff to me is just so crazy because if you get a normal person job, they'll probably check your Twitter.
of
You're
course,
just you're going to get a job at Dell. You're going to get a job wherever. They're going to check your Twitter to make sure you're not too crazy, or like you're socially acceptable crazy.
right?
And then we keep having this thing where these actors that represent movies that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, like you are like the face of essentially a $200 million corporation, even though you're just an employee for them, and they'll just go off on all of this political stuff, and it's like, how do you guys not know how bad of an idea this is? How do you not know that, like, you should not be saying this stuff?
Right.
Like, just, hey, you have the right to have your political opinions, vote the way, like, why are you putting it on the internet? And
Right.
we talked about this with Melissa earlier.
Mhm.
Now we're talking about it here. Of course, there was Gina Carano,
Right.
and just like all the like. There's so many examples of
Yeah, I know.
tweets of
This
it
isn't anything
coming
new.
back to haunt you. Why on earth would you leave it out there? Well, you don't have to say every thought that you have. You
This is
don't
true.
have to chime in on every issue. And you have, especially with actors, they tend to have very large platforms, too much influence in over everything. So you probably, just on a sense of being responsible, should be very careful with how much you chime in on really important things that you are not an expert in.
Right. I 100% agree with that. And then not even just that, but the fact that you get caught red-handed and then try to put the blame on someone else.
Right.
I mean, it's all very sixth grade. I have a
Right.
sixth grader, and when she tells me stories of that, this kind of feels eerily similar.
Right.
So, but with that said, I mean, it seems like they kind of shot themselves in the foot. I mean, I up until last weekend, I was pretty much like, I wouldn't be surprised if it took home all of the awards. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I was surprised that it got to the Golden Globes and it beat out Wicked for Best Musical. When I was like, Wicked is a memorable musical. It's going to last for years to come.
Right.
I have no idea. Like, no one's,
Right.
I don't remember any of the songs. There's one that went super viral, you know,
Right.
the last couple months for a different reason.
Yeah, it's the only song that's memorable,
Right.
is because it's so obnoxiously on the nose about body parts.
It's jarring, and most people that have seen it are like, this isn't parody, right? Like, this is actually real, you know? So yeah.
Breaking number of nominations, that song.
That song.
Golden Globe winning, that song. Not Wicked, obviously the best musical of the year.
Right.
Very obviously.
Oh, obviously. Not even close.
Emilia Perez wins.
I know, man. And so that brings me to my other point with this is the AI stuff.
Mhm.
Now, I had a conversation with the guests who were on last week, and I kind of was putting my feelers out how they feel about the AI thing. And I was like, look, I'm kind of a traditionalist in this. It's either we can go in this direction or we can try to be more, hey, this is going to be putting people out of jobs. And the whole thing, like a giant chunk of what that strike was about a little over a year ago was because of their fear of AI putting people in this industry out of jobs. And I know with the Brutalist, they were like, hey, listen, we only used it to, you know, fine tune some things. And when they were speaking Hungarian, nobody lost their jobs over it. It was just to make sure that they were pronouncing things correctly. But then there was also the rendering issue, which apparently was a pretty big deal with some of the drawings. They were saying, hey, that was actually somebody else could have done that. And then with Emilia Perez, it's been rearing its head that, you know, some of the songs were interspersed with AI to fine tune those. And so I kind of draw the line at it. I'm like, I'm like, hey, we can either go all in and say this is fine, but to me, it's a slippery slope. It's, hey, we're going to start using AI in movies, and that's fine. We're gonna, you know, we're still gonna hire as many people as possible. It's at least just be transparent about where they're going with it, because I feel like if you're gonna start awarding movies and saying it's fine in this one movie, but this other movie it's not because of such and such reason, it just comes across as a big bag of Hollywood hypocrisy, as far as I'm concerned. And so I was curious what your thoughts were with this, because the other problem I see happening too, and you and I watch a ton of movies, and now when I watch a movie, I'm convinced if it's crappy, you know, I'm like, this movie was probably written by AI. Like I've put that into my head where I'm like, AI is probably involved in this movie in some way, shape, or form. With Flight Risk, you know, the opening scene, I was like, is that computer generated or was that an AI? Because it doesn't look good. It looks like AI to me. Some of the dialogue that was happening in that movie, it didn't feel like a Mel Gibson movie to me at all. So I just,
Right.
you know, it's one of those things where I'm starting to get I don't like to be getting jaded on it, but I'm also just like, I feel like they're using AI right in front of our eyes, and maybe they're not, you know, but when you start opening the door to these things, I feel like that problem's only going to get worse.
Yeah, it's just really tough because AI is a tool
It is.
and it can lower costs.
Sure.
And they, you know, people are like, let's boycott. Was it Late Night with the Devil last
Right.
year? Let's boycott it because there's 2 seconds of
Pictures.
um, pictures in here that are AI. And you kind of go, this is clearly not this big expensive studio movie that had a
Right.
ton of extra money to, and we're not talking about this major piece. It's not the same thing as Marvel Studios spending $210 million on Secret Invasion and then doing an AI intro. Like
Yeah, I know.
it's the this is not the same thing. Um, and so they're just these tools that can make movies better,
Sure.
can fine tune some things, and there's versions of that that are good, and there's versions of that are bad. Um, you know, the thing that's so frustrating about so much of this is I just feel like every conversation just goes so hard to extremes,
Yeah.
and so anything that's AI is evil.
Right.
How dare you? Like I did a video on my second channel, and someone I used the phrase Taco Bell movies on my channel to refer to guilty pleasure films because I don't
Sure.
really feel guilty about watching a movie. So they're cinematic fast food.
I
So I
get
just
it.
call them
Yeah.
Taco Bell movies. And so someone asked me, what's your Taco Bell movie from Christopher Nolan? Because he doesn't have guilty pleasure movies. I think they're all just good movies.
Yeah. Right.
So, but you have to pick one. That's the fun of the challenge.
Sure. A
And so
little
I went with
hypothetical.
Batman Begins. Yeah, I went with Batman Begins on
Sure.
it. So the thumbnail, I had an AI generated image of Batman holding a taco.
Uh-huh.
It's funny. Like
Right.
it's a joke. Like I'm like it's just a joke. And the comments are exactly what you'd expect them to be. 50% are like, that's hilarious. Batman's
Yeah.
holding a taco. And 50% were, I can't believe that you would do this. Like, I might have to unsubscribe. Like I was like, there's over 3,000 videos I've made with 3,000 different thumbnails. And in one of them, for the sake of a joke,
Joke. Right.
a visual gag, Batman's holding a taco. And it's that kind of thing of just such like extreme.
Sure.
There's no place for how could you? Well,
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, but I'm pretty sure the answer is not all AI is equally nefarious.
Yeah, and I think and for just the sake of the conversation, in your case, like you're a creator, you don't have a whole team working for you. I think the thing that Hollywood has put out there anyway, you know, big marches, strikes, and stuff
Mhm.
about AI coming through, and then they reward them for it. That's just my issue. I mean, for you and me, like I
Right.
utilize AI, I use it as a tool. I'm a one man crew.
You use AI? If I
How
had known
dare
that,
you?
I wouldn't have come on here. This is
Oh,
this is just outrageous. I'm
right.
gonna get on Twitter and out you for what you've done.
I know. I got to watch what I say sometimes. With Batman holding a taco, though,
Yeah, bad
I'm sure you spent a lot of time drawing that from a free sketch.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I totally see what you're saying. Yeah, it can be utilized as an app, but my point is like, hey, let's just be transparent. I don't
Right.
mind. Like honestly, if you're just gonna say, hey, we utilized AI a little bit in this, totally cool. Like
Yeah.
and I know what they did with the Brutalist, where they said, hey, look, nobody lost their jobs over this. If you can make a point on that, I'm totally cool with it. I just, it's just one of those deals that it's gonna rear its head. I mean, it's not gonna it's a slippery slope. It's going to snowball. People, they're obviously studios are going to utilize it more and more going forward. So, I mean, it's just to be what is expected. I just would say, hey, let's embrace it and use it as a tool for cost cutting measures, and it still can give us the quality that we need. Because I know Tyler Perry was building like a huge $1 billion or multi-million-dollar studio in Atlanta, and then he saw what was it, OpenAI's Suro, or one of those new video generation tools, and then he shut down. He was like, I'm shutting this down because there's no chance that I'm gonna make any money on building this because of the direction AI is going. Yeah,
That's the stuff that's scary.
that's the stuff that's scary. So that's
Whoa. And that, like, you're talking about someone that, like, I'm not watching Tyler Perry movies,
right.
but
I mean,
that
his
is a
movies are
full,
super successful, though. I mean, low
and that,
budgets, and
like,
he produces a huge profit from his films, and
mhm.
he shut down his entire studio because of what he saw where the direction AI was going. So, yep. All right. So, always fun chatting about that stuff. It's just, it's good food for thought. I don't, I utilize it. I'm a small creator. I don't have a full team working for me. So, um, anyway, so all right, well, we got the Oscars coming up here soon. Um, and I know you're a busy guy. You're flying out tomorrow. So Sean, again, thanks for joining me. For a preview for everybody, what do you have coming up? What movies are you watching? Are there any series that you're into that you're not going to review, but you'd like people to get their eyeballs on?
um, what is
Do
going
you
on right
review
now?
everything you watch, or are there some things you watch and you're just like, I just want to watch this and enjoy it. I don't need to go out there and let everybody, put my thoughts out about
Uh,
everything. Because I fall into that sometimes. Sometimes I'll watch something and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to review this.
yeah. So, like, I do at the end of the month, I do
Everything you watched.
a yeah, all the new movies I releases, and the
Uh,
whole point is I can't make a standalone review for
right,
everything, and there's not enough days to do that.
right,
Most movie reviews don't even do that well,
right.
and so have a place where I can talk about all these other things. Um, but so that's why I do that. Probably more so with television.
Sure.
There's stuff that it's like what my wife and I are just watching this thing, and
Yeah.
there's not much expectation of uh, it being covered or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, we got a pretty big month coming up with a new Marvel movie and
Yep.
Cobra Kai coming to its end,
Yep.
and I'm actually interviewing Scott Derrickson
Oh,
on
cool.
Tuesday, so that'll be
He's
fun.
got he's got his new movie with Miles
Hmm.
Teller coming out. With the
The
Gorge.
Gorge.
Yeah, that
Hmm.
looks great.
I have seen it.
Have you? Are you
I
embargoed
think
on it?
the embargo lifted today, so
Oh, really?
I mean, I can double check that and I can share my
Yeah.
thoughts an exclusive Sean Chandler
Right. Yeah. Exciting.
reaction.
Because I'm pumped to see it. I haven't seen it yet. I think of all the streaming services, I think Apple TV is the most bang for your buck at this current moment, as far as quality is concerned. I haven't been
Dude,
disappointed with a lot of stuff as of late.
social embargo. Oh, the social embargo lives in 2 hours.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
so we are 2 hours too early for me
Two
to
hours too
say
early.
too
All
much.
right. Well, then
So,
I'll keep an eye out on
those
Twitter
of
and
you
see.
that are watching right now, plug your ears. Those of you that are watching on rebroadcast, I enjoyed the movie. It
Okay.
feels a little bit like each act is a different genre,
Oh, cool.
which is kind of cool and kind of you get really invested into one thing and then it becomes something different.
Sure.
I actually felt the romance of the movie worked better than the monster stuff, which
Okay.
is kind of interesting. And as soon as you start watching it, you realize why they're releasing it on Valentine's Day,
Okay.
because it's like very much a romance for the first 40%. And when it kind of gets into the action survival side, it felt a little bit more straightforward.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, we've seen things like this. I wasn't super crazy about the creature design.
Okay.
Or creatures design. There's a bunch of different stuff, and some of it worked better than other stuff. The basic idea of kind of the secrets revealed is like, oh, this works well enough for me. So like it works because I bought into the two leads and the dynamic with them. You buy into that, and so everything else works. Like that's the key thing that kind of pulls it together. Is
Sure.
that they got the two right leads that they have a real fun dynamic to them. And with where they're at in life, you buy into the fact that they care about each other, and then you have fun with them, blowing stuff away.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. I can't wait to check it
Now
out.
you guys can unplug your ears
Okay,
for those
yeah.
of you that are watching live.
What is he saying? Old school earmuffs?
Earmuffs.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Have you kept up with any of the Apple TV series like Severance or Shrinking or Silo?
No,
Okay.
unfortunately, it's the
So
problem
much,
that I
man.
guess everyone's running to. There's so much, and there's so much that are big brand IP
Yeah.
TV shows that tie into content that I actually cover. That just sucks up so much of
So
my
much time.
TV
Yeah, I
watching
get it,
time.
man. There's only so much you can watch. It's that's the predicament we're in these days where it's just like there's so many things to
Mhm,
watch. It's impossible to keep up with it all.
mhm. Yeah, people
But
all the time
it
are like, "How have you not watched Squid Game?" It's like, because there's just too many things. Like,
yeah,
there's always one more thing that you've missed, and I could list off all the ones I've seen that you haven't seen. Like,
you're right.
there's too much. That's
Yeah,
the
there's too much.
problem right now. That's that the market. Going back to even some what's the problem with Hollywood and everything else.
It's
They're
oversaturated.
putting out too much content. Period.
Yes.
There's no way that all of this stuff can be profitable when you're putting out this much premium stuff.
Right. Right. And then I was talking to a person on here a couple weeks ago, and we were kind of reminiscing on the days when TV shows used to be 20, 25 episodes, stuff like that. But I'm like, there's just no chance
Right.
that you could make a show like that anymore.
Yeah.
Because one, the actors are they probably have their hand in a bunch of different pots. But two, I mean, who's gonna want to sit down and watch a 20 episode series anymore where they're throwing $200 million at 6 to 10 episodes of like Lord of the Rings that nobody likes and nobody watches.
Yeah.
So
It's fascinating. It's
it
like
really
right
is.
now, just the way the universe has kind of played out. With Superman coming out, I thought I'm going to go back and rewatch Smallville this year. Make it like a
Oh yeah,
7-month long
my wife
project.
just watched that recently. She loves that.
I watched it way back in the
Yeah,
day,
me
and
too.
I've popped on episodes here and there. But people have asked me like, "Oh, you covered these other Superman shows. Are you ever going to cover Smallville?" It's like, well, I can't rank the seasons based off my memories from 2008.
Yeah, it's
Then I
gonna
have
be
to
way
rewatch
different.
it. So I kind of said, "There's probably I'll never be able to do this because it's too long." But new Superman movie coming out, and then my daughter, the 10-year-old that wasn't crazy about Dogman, she kind of likes high school drama
Sure,
shows.
sure.
So she was like into watching it. So it's like something I'm watching with my daughter, and we're 2 seasons in already. But you're watching it, and it's like, oh yeah, this is what television used to
Used
be.
to be. Yeah.
It's like each episode had a beginning, a middle, and an end. They
Uh-huh.
resolved the plot, and there's lingering plot threads that tie into the next episode and follow up something. But
Sure.
you can just watch these episodes in and of themselves, and they work. And then there's that little hook at the end of this person did this, and then
Yep.
this person revealed that makes you want to keep on watching.
Right.
And like, and even the other thing I'm doing, and just while editing, not for any purpose, but I just like threw on 24. I
Right.
haven't watched through 24 for a while, and once again, that is entirely serialized, but it has a like hooks you in so
Oh
many
yeah.
different ways where you're just invested in the melodrama, and everything ends with a cliffhanger. There's always something happening, and then you watch these shows that they're spending $30 million on individual episodes, and it's like they forgot everything that was learned in the first 80 years of television. Like,
Yep.
just like the basic techniques of just hooking people from the beginning and constantly delivering what they signed up for, and at the end of every episode, like dropping something that makes you go, oh man, I got to see the next one.
Right. And it
And
also
instead,
and everything also accumulates into a big explosive finale too, you know, while developing every character. You almost felt like they were family. They were or like close friends. You really got to know these
Right.
characters during those
Right.
shows.
And that's kind of like the nature of so many shows in the past. That's what it was. That
Yeah,
once you've watched a few episodes, you either like the characters or you don't, and so you just want to spend more time with them.
right.
So you're just sitting there watch 4 episodes of Smallville in a day and whatever, and you just want to spend more time with them. And so many of these new shows, it's like they've lost that entirely,
I agree.
and they treat it like a let's take a 2 hour movie, make it 4 hours long, and then break it up into 6 to 8 episodes. And it has none of the advantages of television, and it loses what makes movies work, the
Right.
brevity, that
Yep.
a single sitting, and it's the wrong compromise of all of it with the budget of a movie. And it's just like,
Yeah.
how does it even make any sense? Like, how did you think you were going to make a profit on Secret Invasion costing $210 million? How could you possibly pull in enough Disney Plus subscriptions to justify that?
Yeah, no kidding. And nobody liked it. Nobody watched
Yeah,
it.
it was terrible.
It was really bad. It was rough. And then
Yeah.
you know, they spend all this money, and then you look, you're like, did you forget that you needed to do CG in this too? Because like, what's her name, Emilia Clarke's arm. You know,
Yeah.
I was like, that's some of the worst CG I've seen in anything Marvel related, and yet you guys had more money than most of the movies that they've greenlit.
Right.
So
It's
yeah,
just like it came out this week, and I don't know who knows what the actual budget for this Captain America movie is.
oh my
But the
gosh, I know.
reporting in the Hollywood Reporter is that it's $180 million.
I don't believe that for a second.
Neither do I. But the reporting that it's $180 million, and you think that's after the reshoot. So it's like, okay, so you're saying originally it was supposed to be what, 150, $160 million? Like, I'm supposed to believe that to be true when you spent $210 million on Secret Invasion? Like,
Right.
Captain America, kind of a bigger brand
Yeah.
than Secret Invasion.
Well,
and
and
that's a TV show.
then from my understanding, maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, but like, it wasn't just like little reshoots. Like, they pretty much reshot almost like the whole movie because they had some disastrous test screenings.
So that's the big, how much of everything is true.
Right.
That's kind of the situation.
Right.
That one, like, you have Hollywood Reporter saying what Disney wants them to say, which is, now, I mean, it was normal reshoots that everybody does. Maybe there's a little bit more to it than normal, but it was 3 weeks of reshoots. Not nearly as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. No, the budget's not $350 million. And then you kind of go, okay, like, but you delayed the movie a year.
Yeah.
Like, you delayed the movie a full year, and you added Giancarlo Esposito as a new villain. Clearly, that's not normal reshoots. You don't
Right.
hire Giancarlo Esposito as like, yeah, we just needed a stand-in in this quick little reshoot. So it's like, clearly they're running spin.
Yeah.
And Hollywood Reporter is, doing that for them.
When they're bidding.
And I've had so many people message me like, dude, it's confirmed. They only spent this much and the reshoots were only this. Hollywood Reporter said it. Was like, but where did Hollywood Reporter get that information from?
Right. Yeah. Who's
I
giving
don't believe that the movie cost $350 million because that sounds preposterous.
outrageous.
I also think it's preposterous that they spent $180 million on
Right.
it. Like, it's probably the answer's somewhere in the middle. That the reshoots were not just standard reshoots; they were more extensive. They were corrective reshoots, not just, hey, we always do some reshoots because it's just good practice that we can budget for. No, you were trying to fix a movie that wasn't working.
Right.
Pretty clearly, you do not delay a movie a year if things are going great. But how much, I don't know. Like, I just, like, it feels like, once again, two extremely different answers, and people believe whichever narrative they want to believe that confirms their biases. Like, no, Disney's still great, so it's $180 million, very minor reshoots. The movie's going to be fantastic, despite the fact that they got the director of Cloverfield Paradox to direct it.
Yeah. And then, I mean, Anthony Mackie had an interesting week too with that clip of him that went viral. And so I know he was doing some backtracking. Yeah, exactly. It's another, you say something and, I'm like, well, you put it out there. But yeah, I have no idea.
The internet did what the internet did. And
the internet did.
One group of
exactly.
people went, he hates America.
Yeah,
How
exactly.
could Captain America? And the other group of people went, there's nothing weird about these comments at all. There's nothing awkward. This is something that Steve Rogers himself would say. There's nothing peculiar about this statement at all. It's like, come on now.
Yeah.
Can't we just like go say common sense right in the middle? Just common sense right
Common
in the middle and
sense, all we
say
need.
it was an awkward way to phrase it, but if you hear the whole quote, it's pretty obvious what he was saying, and it's
Right.
not nearly as bad as you're making it out to be. But of course, it's going to raise eyebrows to say that Captain America doesn't represent America. Come on, let's just use common sense.
It's in his name.
Right. It's right there. It's a weird, clunky way to phrase it. And he said,
It is.
I don't think he represents America. Let me explain what I mean by that. What I'm not saying is
that would have solved everything.
And everything's resolved. And you go, these are universal characteristics that America wants to live up to. And sometimes we do, but a lot of times we fail to. So saying he represents America, I think, misses the deeper, and that's what the people were defending and saying, well, here's what he really means. Like, if you have to say what he really means, then he said it in a kind of a clunky, awkward way. But also 1,000 videos saying, see, they hate America. Like, no, come on. Why can't we be normal, everybody? Why can't we have real conversations where everything isn't crazy as can be and cranked up to 11?
Right. I know. All right. So I asked my stepson yesterday. We were watching Dogman. I said, "Hey, do you want to see that?" And he goes, "I don't know. Do you?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I'm going to, but I'm not excited about it." And he goes, "Well, maybe I'll see it." It didn't elicit the same sort of Marvel response that I was expecting an 8-year-old boy to have for that movie. So anyway, I mean, I'm hoping it's good. I think Thunderbolts is something I'm actually relatively excited about.
Yeah.
Trailers look great. I've heard some good buzz about it. I'm more intrigued than I am excited for Fantastic Four. But are there any? How's as Mr. I think someone accused you yesterday of being Mr. Marvel. As Mr. Marvel, as that one crazy person on the internet said, how are you feeling about Marvel going forward right now?
Both I'm Mr. Marvel and I hate Marvel now. Just
okay. Well,
I'll get both of them.
Yeah.
Just stay in your lane, Sean. Just talk about comic book movies. You've changed. Why do you hate all comic book movies?
Yeah. How dare you make Batman eating tacos?
Yeah. How dare you? Yeah, I've never really been excited for Captain America: Brave New World.
Yeah,
because I didn't think Falcon and the Winter Soldier was very good.
No,
I was very excited for that show, and
I didn't like it at all. If I'm being honest,
and it was like that's an easy win. It's kind of impressive to mess that up because let's take two popular characters, do a buddy action show, and somehow they ruined the whole plot.
Right.
And the villain is horrible.
Oh man.
And it weirdly preachy and pauses constantly to like.
Hey, don't call those people terrorists who are terrorizing and blowing up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was like, what? I don't under.
Yeah, it's just like it's the sort of thing like it's like the stereotype of modern day films. Of
exactly.
Like very weird messaging that doesn't belong, and it's so superficial. Like,
there's some YouTubers who make their nut on the messaging of that particular show in particular.
But so I had to think it was very good, and then they hired the director of Cloverfield Paradox, a movie famous for two things. That they did this gimmick where they hadn't announced the movie, they ran the trailer during the Super Bowl,
right?
And the movie dropped on Netflix right afterwards.
Right afterwards, yeah.
And then the movie was terrible. Those are the only two things that people remember about the film. He directed that movie. And it's the writers of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I was never excited about it. And then there's, all this bad buzz.
Yeah.
A movie was delayed a year. Like,
never
Marvel
a good sign.
Nothing come out last year. They had Deadpool and Wolverine. And that is Marvel Studios. It is MCU, but not really.
That was more Ryan Reynolds, I feel, than Marvel.
Like it's Fox X-Men. It's like the movie's designed to be a love letter to that dying universe that got absorbed into Disney. That's what the movie is. And then beyond that, you had Echo and you had Agatha. So they had an X-Men 97. They had multiple projects come out, but none of them were like true Marvel. And they could have released this movie if it was good, but it wasn't. They had a strong incentive to have it out last year, but they didn't.
They didn't, yeah.
That kind of tells you everything you need to know about like that this movie had significant issues that needed to be fixed. Thunderbolt's pretty excited about it just because I like the idea. I like kind of the side characters. Team up movies are fun. team up movies with the Ragtag group. That's that, Dirty
Yeah.
Dozen, whatever you want to like. It's a winning formula.
And I heard Sebastian
Um,
Stan say that there's going to be a ton of practical effects, and I'm
mhm.
really liking the direction that some Hollywood movies seem to be taking, is going more of a practical
Dialing
approach
it
than
back to
CGI
CGI.
everything. Which
And
I
it's
go ahead.
beyond just the look of practical over CGI. It just gets so boring when everything just
Yes.
turns into a big CGI cartoon.
Yep.
You build. How do you make something exciting? Just make it bigger. And they're not just going to blow up the city. They're going to blow up the state. They're not just going to blow up the state. They're going to blow up the entire world. They're not just going to blow up the world. They're going to blow up our universe. Like
Yeah.
that's boring. And
It is.
so if you craft a good sequence, if you make me care about the characters and the meaning of the conflict, you don't need it to be just bigger than everything else. You have something that the sequence itself is thrilling, but that they've lost the ability to do that.
They have.
And so all of a sudden you watch Black Widow and we're like in a sky base that's
Gosh.
exploding and we're sword fighting while free falling, and you're like, this is a video game. This is ridiculous. Who thought that this was more exciting than having them on ground, having a martial arts fight between Taskmaster, who learns their fighting skills, and two Black Widows who have to find a way to outsmart someone that immediately learns their fighting style.
Right.
Instead of doing the obvious interesting thing there, we're falling from the sky, which is just cartoonishly silly.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason
So,
why some
anyway.
people say Old Boy has the greatest fight scene ever, because it's that one take of that dude taking on everybody himself with choreography and everything. So, you know, yeah, there's something to be said about that. I can't stand the CGI fighting, because you're like, were they even there? Were they even fighting against anybody, or was it all just done against green screen by themselves?
Right. Like,
Yeah,
it's the sort of thing
I was watching the new Will Ferrell movie on Prime Video, and I was like, this is a perfect example of why modern movies kind of suck. Is they're in in a place in Georgia, and then the backdrop is all green screen when they're shooting just like a little sunset. And I'm like, just something simple like that, most people aren't going to notice, but people like you and me are going to sit back and go, wait, they have this location, this beautiful location. They could have shot it there, yet they chose to shoot this particular scene on green screen for what? I mean, I guess the sound is better. It's stuff like that where you just go, hey, it looks bad. It's green screen hell for no reason. So anyway, I know, man. I know. Well, I don't want to end on a bad note. I know I told you about an hour and a half, but it's been a great conversation, man. You are awesome. Everybody go check out Sean's stuff. So Sean, as we wrap things up on this Groundhog Day, where can people find you? And I know you got a big week coming up, so I'll let you.
Yeah. If you look up Sean Chandler on YouTube, you'll either find an NFL player or a guy that looks like me talking about movies. It's the guy that looks like me that talks about movies.
Yep.
Then I'm on Twitter, the TikTok, the Letterboxd, the Instagram. I'm on all the different places.
You sound like a 40-year-old man. The Twitter.
That's true. Yeah. It's true. I have moved into middle-aged, and you talked about glazing things over, and I was like, I don't even know what your youthful slang means anymore. I've grown old and out of touch.
I get it, man. I keep those terms alive because I got kids in the house. That's really it. I say, wait, what does that word mean now? I feel like my parents.
Yeah, my kid only teaches me the brain rot slang, the skibbity toilets.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's not much difference. I think it's all kind of in one big circle, ties together. But okay, so yeah, you got so one more time, what you got going on this week?
So this week I'm heading out to LA for the Critics' Choice Awards.
That's awesome.
Hopefully I'm going to be able to interview a couple people out there for a new series I'm looking to launch with, just having conversations with people. And I'm talking to Scott Derrickson on Tuesday.
That's awesome.
And I think I'm gonna. I don't know. I actually don't know what videos. It depends on what I can get shot tomorrow.
Sure. Yeah. No pressure.
What I can get edited in time, but. I watched the 1970s Captain America TV movie.
Oh, wow.
1990 Captain America movie. So might have some old school retro Captain America reviews this week.
So I
might not have time to get those reviews filmed. So who knows what's going to happen.
Once Brave. Go ahead.
And the Fantastic Four trailer drops Tuesday.
So. Oh, yeah. Yep. So everybody keep an eye
So
out for
did
that.
want to chime in on that one because we'll find out if it's good or not, or if it looks good or
Looks
not
good. Yeah.
in a day and a half.
I mean, because the last Fantastic Four movie really got people excited for the franchise. So
It did. Great representation.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The fans weren't furious about that movie at all. Where they weren't Fantastic Four, but for like 10 minutes in that movie. Okay, man. Well, hey, Sean, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I know you got a busy week ahead. I really appreciate you coming on. I created this little live stream to put content creators big and small. So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to talk movies. It was a great conversation. I expected nothing less from you. So yeah, everybody, this is Sean Chandler. Go ahead and check out all his stuff. And yeah, he's got a ton of videos on YouTube. If you're watching this, you probably already know that. So anyway, Sean, I can't thank you enough, man. I really appreciate your time. Yeah. All right. Take care, man.